Without further ado, we're going to have a first session on the targets for 2030, the famous digital compass that the Commission has set out. And Anthony Whelan will give us the scene setter in a moment on what those targets look like and where we're heading. But there are many elements of that we'd like to then tap into with Susana Solis Perez, member of the European Parliament from the Renew Group, Axel Voss, member of the European Parliament from the EPP Group in Germany, and Cristian Silviu Busoy, also from the EPP Group in Romania, who will animate what Whelan will set out. And we'll be talking about things like skills, secure infrastructure, digital transformation of businesses, including SMEs, digitalization of public service, and how these different goals will combine with the next generation EU package, the recovery from the crisis that we've just gone through and hopefully are exiting soon, and in a sense building Europe's profile as a digital powerhouse in the coming decade. Things like digital sovereignty, strategic autonomy, of course, come into that as well. But you're not here to hear from me, you're here to hear from Anthony. So without further ado, Anthony, I'd like to give you the floor, and then we'll go through the other panelists. Please.
Great. Thanks a lot, Magnus, and good morning, everyone. I was not yet around in 2008, but I have had the pleasure of working with many of the people on this and the next panel, and have always greatly appreciated the constructive approach, which we will certainly need as we head into Europe's digital decade, as the President dubbed it in her State of the Union speech last year. Maybe I just pick up something apart from the fact that I'm always happy to be with the EIF, and I'm very happy to be on an event that marks the return of Mobile World Congress in its sort of hybrid format. What Daniel was saying about the difficulties in breaking out, as it were, from the habits of confinement made me think of a fairly compelling example of how Europe can do digital well if we're all rowing in the same direction, which is the European Digital COVID Certificate. It's a model not only of alignment of interest and very fast-track legislation, where both Council and Parliament, I think, added value to what we were doing and what we had proposed, but also what I think a lot of the naysayers did not believe would happen is that already before the entry into force of the system, which is on the 1st of July, so tomorrow, already more than 20 of our member states have preemptively activated it. So they are issuing certificates, they are verifying certificates, and they are running the system via the EU gateway that was prepared in a privacy-friendly way for that purpose. So in the space of less than 6 months since this became a political topic, Europe has delivered a major digitalization of public service, which I believe will greatly serve citizen interests and shows also to the world what we are capable of in terms of driving a standard or a technical specification that can become a reference also for the globe. Now, pulling out from that and looking at the digital compass that we set out, we identified 4 cardinal points that I think people broadly agree on: the need for skills, the need for secure and capable infrastructures in the widest sense. Obviously, communications networks are still right at the base of that pyramid, but we go up into, let us say, data infrastructures as well, digitalization of businesses, digitalization of public services. How do we take it forward? Drawing on the example I just cited, the most important thing is first to agree on the needs. As Daniel said, everyone now agrees that digital transformation is important, but you need to focus on certain things. The specific targets we have identified are based, I think, on a mix of driving socioeconomic take-up on a couple of key parameters, on addressing very central strategic dependencies, which we have also looked at in our recent update of the industry strategy, and issues of what I would call social equity, namely the spread of digital transformation, its availability and accessibility to all. One of the ways we believe we can get cohesion around these objectives is by bringing member states and the European Parliament together to endorse both the targets and a system for delivery of monitoring and delivery on them, which will be a digital policy program to be proposed in the autumn, which those who remember the 2008 review on the spectrum policy program will perhaps recognize a bit of their DNA in as well as an idea. What we believe we need to do is get a common dashboard of how we're doing on these targets across Europe, get a common level of commitment to them by public actors, and also therefore establish them as a rallying point for business and civil society actors, with roadmaps, with clarity on the direction that we are going, which also, of course, is very important for investors. Now, in that, regulation is, of course, important. Regulation is important to give clarity and legal security on certain things. If we take something like AI, our proposal on AI is designed to avoid fragmentation in the European market and to ease acceptability of a major technology. But of course, regulation only delivers part of the story. You need to accompany it with measures to drive take-up, investment, relevant skills, and that's where issues such as, or opportunities such as the national plans under Next Generation EU come up, where the digital priorities match very well the four cardinal points that I mentioned. Equally, if we take something like data, regulation is important in order to create legal security on the exchange of what I would call this horizontal good. But you also need data infrastructures, you need investment in the most energy efficient distributed handling of data, which is secure and which can also be, if the market opportunity is taken up, also, of course, as it were, the home market for European innovation in this area. Following that up with things such as our policy on standardization, putting tools in the hands of member states and businesses, such as projects of common interest, multi-country projects, industry alliances to bring together the most important actors and try to establish also a common vision of industry with public actors on the best strategy to go forward, and much more, but we said we'd stick to 5 minutes, so I'll stop there. Thanks.
Oh, there we go. Mute went off. Thank you, Anthony, digital advisor to Ursula von der Leyen, and clearly having a big influence on how the EU is setting its targets and the path to them. I think we will get to some reactions, some thoughts on how this is going, and then Anthony, you can come back and address them in the Q&A later on. But please, Susana Solis Perez from Renew Spain, please share us your thoughts.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation to this panel. I have to say, on Monday, I had the opportunity to attend physically again the Mobile World Congress. It was fantastic to see that the Congress come back to Barcelona, which means that the pandemic is almost over, and how much digital technologies like 5G, AI, and big data have advanced since the last edition I was there. As you said before, the time for a successful digital transformation is now. Indeed, Europe's recovery and competitiveness depends on how fast we are able to achieve the digital transformation of our society and our economy. I will always say we have to build back better. And this is why we fully support the Commission's approach for the digital decade targets. And this is my first point. the level of ambitions is very high, but we cannot aim any lower. And I agree on the needs, as Anthony said, because if we want to become globally competitive and ensure our strategic autonomy, we have to reach the goals we have set ourselves. And for that, we need very strong commitments and more cooperation among regulators, policymakers, governments, and industry. As you said before, we have to work in partnership. And that takes me to my second point. These targets will need huge amounts of investments, both public and private. Gigabit connectivity and 5G are very capital intensive, and we have to massively invest in digital infrastructures. The right side is that we have now a unique opportunity with next generation funds, which should not be seen as a simple economic stimulus, but a historic opportunity to correct our weaknesses and reposition Europe as a leader competing with China and USA. The institutions were clear as to the priorities of these funds. At least 20% of the funds have to be dedicated to the digital transition. But we need to make sure now that member states deliver, that the national recovery plans deliver. And that's why we should ask ourselves, are the national recovery plans ambitious enough to meet the digital decade targets? Are ambitious enough to guarantee the rapid deployment and uptake of the 5G technology or the connectivity in rural areas? Because I am concerned. According to a recent published report, despite of the funds, there remains some important gaps in the field of digital infrastructure, and they believe that national recovery plans will not get us there alone. I think there is still much to be done. That's why we need a policy framework that allows us to attract much more private investments. And this brings me to my third point. We have the ambition, we have the funds, and now we need to back it with sound legal framework. The digital transition needs an enabling legal framework that respects our European values and principles, but does not over-regulate or hamper innovation. And this balance in regulation is what we are striving for in the EU right now. We are seeing it in key pieces of legislation like artificial intelligence or the creation of the European data space. And on top of that, this legal framework should also take into account the increasing digital divide in Europe and in the rural areas. Around 30% of EU's population live outside the cities, and we have to provide people living in rural areas with the same opportunities as one who live in big cities. In this sense, we need to clarify stated rules to guarantee the connectivity of rural areas, because at the moment, private investors are still reluctant to invest in 5G. It is a clear case of market failure. But we should not forget other instruments to promote connectivity. We have the structural funds, the Connecting European Facility, the Commission's proposal of a mechanism to facilitate the launch of multi-country projects, and all these instruments need to be able to interact among them. That's why I believe it is so important to promote synergies between them. And of course, as Anthony mentioned, we need a robust governance mechanisms with clear milestones and a monitoring system. I like this dashboard that Anthony mentioned before, because without clear indicators, we cannot monitor progress. And finally, the most important point, investing in people. Investing in infrastructure will not be enough if our society cannot or does not know how to keep up with the change that technology brings. We need to invest in skills and modernize our education and training systems. And of course, we need to promote more women in STEM studies, because today we women are still seriously underrepresented. So when we look back in some years, we need to be able to say that the digital transformation benefited everyone. It will only be successful if they are inclusive. It is the only way forward. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Susana, for that perspective from the Spanish liberal family, I guess. We'll continue the tour de table, and next up is Axel Voss, member of the European Parliament from Germany and the EPP Group. Please. I think you need to unmute, or if we, yeah. Perfect.
Sorry. thanks a lot, Magnus, and also thanks a lot for the invitation to this event. And so it's always an honor also to speak here for this event. And it's more than less a kind of so Daniel in the beginning also already mentioned that now every politician is aware that we need digitalization. And this is somehow, yes, it's a positive signal, but also a kind of a shame that we are now, because of the pandemic, having the idea of digital transformation, and this has to be stepped up. And so, but if we are looking to the parliament, we are already working on these for a lot of years. And now the member states, it seems that they are joining or try to join. So what we need, of course, as a kind of a precondition for digital issues, and this has been mentioned, it's infrastructure, connectivity, broadband, 5G, 6G, edge computing, quantum computing, etc. We need data. And also, let me say also something, digital transformation is not just a kind of, oh yes, we are transforming these step by step in a way. We have to have in mind that this is already a question of global competition. And therefore we need the framework, we need also the speed of everything. And this is how we are lacking so far, and we are behind other regions in the world, because we are doing what we are always doing, taking our time, discussing, being politically fragmented, and so on. And this is not helpful for the competition, and this means also for prosperity, wealth, and our way of life here in Europe. So this is why I'm missing at first, and Pilar mentioned this already, political leadership. Yes, we are doing here something and there's something, but we do not have a kind of a real plan. We do not have a strategic where we have this idea of prioritizing and then investing a lot. What we are now offering of investments is nothing compared what we should do to be more in the lead of everything. We have the knowledge or some experts in place, but we are not able to transfer this to business models and to have prosperity also on this side. So this is where I would say this lack of political leadership, and I do not mean always only the European level. I think also in this dimension of member states, and our national leaders are not able any longer to join forces. So we need, from my perspective, joining forces. We need European projects to be a good competitor to the rest, to the world. So if everyone is doing something on its own, then probably we are not competing a lot to the rest of the world. So that's why I think we need to step up with these ideas, with these structures, with this transformation. And beside infrastructure, data, cybersecurity, we need these patents and copyright issues, ethical questions, definitions, research and developments, investments, and then, of course, the political will, standardization. And why do we need our American partners to remind us, oh yes, we can do here kind of an EU-US tech partnership? Why we are haven't done this before already. So that's why I think we are lacking here a lot, and we need to step up and have a lot of developments in parallel, not to being too much behind. And this is then also coming to the infrastructure of our democratic structures. Also there, I know we are politically fragmented. This is always a kind of time consuming issue already. But if we are doing everything how we are always doing, then we are not a kind of a good legislator to our industry any longer. So if we are taking, let's say, 10 years for the data, general data protection regulation, or now AI, we will take another 3 years or whatever, then the development is already a step further. And we are also once again behind. So we have to think also about our structures, our democratic structures, and how to be a kind of sending out guidelines in the forefront before we are then have a kind of a detailed regulation in place. So this is what I'm criticizing. We are taking too much time for something what's already is on the agenda. And here I think we need also, if we are coming to data, Susanna already mentioned also this one, data is not only an aspect for fundamental rights, it is already an aspect of competition. In a data-driven world, and if you would like to be a part of it, then you can't say, oh, no, we can't use data at all. No, we have also to rethink about our data policy, if you want so. But if we are not doing this, yes, we can lean back, sit other and looking to others who are developing more and more business models. And so also here we have to think differently. Data are not only a question of a fundamental right and protection, it's already a competition and competition issue. And therefore also we have to strive the balance better regarding protecting privacy and having innovation and developments. So not to be too long, but this is my general approach on this digital decade. So even so, I'm praising the Commission for doing this, but also thinking in decades in the digital world is probably not the right step forward. Therefore, I also would like to urge everyone, we need to be more speedy.
Excellent, Axel. Thanks for setting that out and some food for thought, I think, that will drive the discussion. And I appreciate the plural of the use of data. You said data are rather than data is, which warms my former journalist heart very nicely. So we started in Brussels, we went to Spain, we've gone through Germany, now we'll go to the other end of Europe. Cristian Silviu Busoy, member of the parliament from Romania and the EPP group. Please take the floor.
Thank you so much, and very honored to be part of this very interesting discussion. Sorry for not being able to be in Barcelona. For the committee that I'm chairing, where I'm the president, Industry, Research and Energy Committee, ITRE Committee, this discussion is extremely important and relevant. And of course, the question, what will it take to reach Europe's digital decade targets, is a question that we discussed several times in ITRE Committee with different representatives of European Commission, but also with a lot of experts and with the member states when presidency took over. But because the digital Europe is at the core of the transformation that the Union has set to achieve, and the leadership worldwide into turning digital will be a key factor in the geopolitical context, as those who set the standards today are those who will have a leverage on international markets tomorrow. Europe needs to make itself fit for its digital decade targets, as it has to be fit for 55 target by 2030. We have these two important medium and long-term strategic goals, and we have to work hard in order to reach our targets by 2030. We need to see the 2030 as being a double challenge to meet, the green and the digital challenge, in order to make the transition. Yet Europe still lacks a comprehensive and mainstream policy that will also include digital into the industrial policy. And we would like to see more clear and, of course, more feasible ideas in the new industrial policy related to digital. We also are very much concentrated in ITRE committee on having a balanced approach and focus on a lot of the competitiveness of the European industry. We like to see more jobs, take care of energy security supply, and of course, boost the digitalization of our societies. We want action to be taken in addition to what member states are doing in order to restart the economies. We have very ambitious goals and we are advancing fast on this agenda. For many years, one of the main challenges of the Union was to stimulate economic growth, ensuring global competitiveness, while of course making the green transition. Yet deep transformation of our industrial sectors is what we need, and one that fosters digitalization, innovation and new technologies such as 5G, while protecting intellectual property and reducing the carbon footprint to reach also the climate target, as I said, as well. In order to maintain the global competitiveness of European industry, many current shortcomings, such as over-dependency on international supply chains, insufficient investment levels, widening productivity and innovation gaps, and skills shortages, even in the digital area, and I hope you agree with me, must be addressed. Two key elements of the digital transformation of European unions represent the way we see the role of industry and also proper investment. It should make clear for everyone, and we should maybe explain better to our citizens that digitalization and new technologies will change our lives and enable solutions to many of the challenges we are facing. For example, our ability to collect, storage, and process data by artificial intelligence algorithms will increase efficiency and productivity and strengthen overall competitiveness of the Union, and not only in the digital sector or industrial sector. EU can also benefit of digital transformation in order to maximize industrial performance by combining its technological and industrial capabilities in a coordinated manner, and further develop and update the digital infrastructure across member states. For that, in European Parliament, we fought and made sure that EU instruments such Connecting Europe Facility and Digital Europe receive adequate funding, and a lot of opportunity will arise from this. Also, to innovate, we have at our disposal Horizon Europe, and you know that there the digital pillar is extremely strong. And it was mentioned by my two colleagues, members of European Parliament, Madam Solis Perez and Mr. Vos, that we will have many opportunities which will come for each member state, and especially countries like my country, Romania, Central East European countries, Southern countries, from RRF, from Resilience Recovery Facility, and also cohesion funds. We could use cohesion funds in order to improve our digital infrastructure around EU. We only need to make sure that these instruments will be implemented and member states will benefit of all synergies between all financial resources in order to make the double transition. We are also working in European Parliament to improve the legislation. Of course, DMA, DSA, I highly debated. I also believe that it should be improved. The text proposed by European Commission should be improved. I'm advocating for a balanced approach. Also, of course, we have the roaming legislation revision, and I believe that we should concentrate more on a faster implementation of 5G and start really creating the right incentives for artificial intelligence investments in European Union. We need an European agenda on how to increase Europe's strategic digital autonomy by determining flagship areas. High volumes of data will require inevitable measures to ensure data sovereignty and will enable European Union to become a major global hub for data, opening up also other important opportunities. EU digital agenda need to focus efforts on strategic sectors in order to try to become leader or at least improve our position in the global competition, to focus efforts in fields such as manufacturing, robotics, trade, health, and creative industries. Finally, I believe that in securing our lead in tackling climate change, we need also to work towards climate innovation, but also digitization. And this will help us to remain competitive and assuring growth. I can assure you, as the chair of Committee for Industry, Research and Energy, that my personal and also my colleagues' long-term commitment is to achieving the ambitious targets on climate policies with a complete and coherent digital transformation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Christian, and also for bringing in that green angle, which I think is going to be on Anthony's mind as much as a digital one. We can get to that in a second. We're going to transfer towards a Q&A. So I want to bring up Paolo's work, say visualizing where we've gotten to so far, as a bit of food for thought, as a bit of inspiration for questions. And I think, let's just see if I can bring it up a bit. There we go. Yeah, so we have lots of the themes that we touched on in various of the interventions: innovation, connectivity, digitalization, but also the social equity part, the skills agenda, the investment in people, not just infrastructure, and the regulation as a kind of anchoring point for all of this as we head towards a data-driven world. And I think it sets it out nicely. So thanks, Paolo, for doing a very nice visual, I have to say, in a very short space of time.